across this video on TikTok of a divested Black woman who ended up sharing the traumatizing events that she had as a result of growing up divested. Now, to be clear, she never claimed to be a divester, and I didn't see any negative rhetoric about her hating Black men, but she did grow up with the ideal lifestyle that divestors say they want. She grew up in an all-white community, surrounded by all-white things, all-white people, access to better schools, safer neighborhoods, all the like, but she was traumatized, and here's why.
Yeah, growing up Black in a conservative, all-white town really you up. I tell the story a lot, but one thing that's always stuck with me is the time that my best friend was calling one of our mutual friends about me and asks him if he thinks that I'm pretty. And he responds with like, are you referring to her tits? I don't want to not be hard on myself, but I also just don't have particularly big boobs to really make that comment on, but whatever. But anyway, yeah, then that was all solidified freshman year of college when my roommate could walk out of the room fresh faced, no makeup, t-shirt, jeans, and have guys hit on her, whereas for me I could barely get attention if I was dressed up looking like this, having nails done, makeup done, hair done, everything. And I think what that subconsciously taught me is that it's hard for me to be loved. And I'm realizing it now that I'm here in the UK and I'm dating and I'm going on all these dates. I could bring my best, most energetic self to a date and get a second date. I can also just be really standoffish and cold and just sarcastic and get a second date. And it's not to say that guys are easy, but it's just that the standards weren't that high. It's just that people were freaking racist. And I was jumping through all of these social hoops to be the most engaging, interesting, caring, charismatic girl to be even seen as a romantic partner, when it's actually easy for me to be loved. I feel it's also nice that I'm kind of, affirming this a lot, and so I'm having this reflected back in my circumstances, but racism is real, and you can't affirm yourself out of the fact that people expect you to do so much more as a Black woman.
I have had my fair share of experiences being the only token Black person in the room or being the representative of the Black race, whether or not I want to be or not. I know what it feels like to be in those scenarios. And what she described to me is the issue that Black women have when they are raised in these kinds of environments, and they are raised to essentially be aracial. That is to say that they are raised with no understanding of where they rank in society, no understanding of their cultural history, their cultural pride, and they think they're going to be perceived and treated just like everyone else. And so when they see white kids who live next door to them, they see a white postman, they go to a grocery store and see white people, sometimes they can start to feel okay, not a big deal, right? These are my peers. But then when they go and they try to interact, they go and they try to interact with men in the dating and mating market. They go and they try to hang out with the popular kids. There's going to be those subtle reminders that they are different. And if they are not prepared at home, if they don't have parents who instill that in them, who instill a strong foundation in them, not only just of God and their spiritual identity, but who they are culturally and how to navigate those differences, it can be super traumatizing. And so this is the issue that I think Black women experience when they grow up without an understanding of not only who they are culturally, but where they rank in society. And this isn't to say that they can't have a good life, they obviously can, but there has to be this level of awareness. And when that doesn't exist, they can put themselves in situations, put themselves in scenarios to be humiliated and not even know how to handle it. The thing about it is Black men, even mixed race Black men, don't have that experience. They are reminded every single day throughout society that they are different. Here's an example.
So I've been seeing a lot of white mothers make videos about their biracial children and kind of wondering what it's going to be like for them growing up. And me being biracial, I can kind of give you a little bit of insight to that. My mother's white and my dad's Black, and I grew up in a single parent household. So when I was younger, a lot of people used to be like, oh, you're mixed, you get the best of both worlds, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you get the worst of both worlds too. So for my whole childhood, I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and I had to fight and I got bullied a lot for being biracial. But it wasn't until I moved across the bridge to a predominantly white neighborhood that I encountered real racism. And all throughout middle school and throughout high school, I started getting in trouble because I started fighting, because I was getting called racial names and getting bullied for being mixed. And there'd be times I'd walk down the street even, and people would throw things at me and call me niggers out the window. And I remember I really started encountering racial resistance when I started running the police. And I remember one time the police stopped me and one of my white friends, and he told me that I didn't belong on this side of the bridge and that I belonged on the other side of the bridge. And I also remember one time where me and one of my white friends snuck into a movie because we didn't have any money, and management caught us and called the police, and they let my white friend go, but I had to go to juvie. Those are just small, minor PG examples. So let me tell you, white people see biracial people as black, and black see biracial people as white. That's the reality of it. They can't really comprehend that there's a line down the middle, and we don't fit into either one of their worlds. So if you're a white mom and you have a mixed son, he's probably gonna grow up dating white women. And if you're a white mom and you have a mixed daughter, she's probably gonna grow up dating whatever race she sees you date. When I was younger and I started dating white girls, and I'd get a lot of racial backlash from their families. My girlfriends and I used to get harassed a lot by their families because they were dating me. And even my fiance even just recently got disowned by her family because they told her that when she was younger to never bring home a black guy, and yet we're engaged. I remember one day I went to go help my grandmother, my white grandmother, and she asked me, she's like, why don't you date your own race? And even my grandfather, he told me that once they found out that my mother was pregnant by a black guy, they were no longer going to allow her in the house, or they wouldn't allow him in the house. He even told me that they weren't going to allow me in the house because I was of mixed race. But that all changed once I was actually born. And even by my extended white family, I've got called a lot of racial slurs, got excluded from a lot of family events. But the good thing about growing up biracial is you'll be able to culture shift a lot more easily. And you'll develop better cross-culture communication skills. And the world's changing, and it allows us to be more in tune with reality.
So there you have it. Men and women are treated differently. I truly believe that one of the reasons it's hard for black women to connect with black men today, or sometimes there can be this tension, at least that we see online, is because there is this gap. Sometimes some of us literally forget that we are perceived as black women. We forget that. And black men who go throughout society having a constant reminder can start to feel disconnected from women when they forget who they are. And it's not until black women start to get rejected in the dating and mating market, it's not until they start to be rejected for their blackness that some of them wake up and recognize, hey, maybe I'm not like Becky. Maybe this race thing still is a thing. Like literally, the main time that I see women complaining about racism is when they get rejected from Brad. But black men don't have that luxury. Even when they're mixed, even when they're perceived as light skin, they're still black to the white society. So this is the downside of living in nicer communities away from Blackistan. This is the downside. And if you find yourself in a position like that, then if there's not a strong level of awareness, if there is not preparation, and if there is not a conscious attempt to make sure that your black kids are still connected with who they are on all levels, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, they still culturally where they are still involved in the community in some way, shape, or form, they can grow up with a bit of an identity crisis. And it can be quite traumatizing. But what do you think? Do you agree or do you disagree? Let me know. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.